Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Internet Computer Developer Journey. In today's episode, 2.3, using third-party canisters, we'll be using the DFINITY command in order to pull third-party canisters into our project. A third-party canister is simply a canister that provides a public service at a static canister ID. Some examples of these are the canisters created by DFINITY, such as the NNS and Internet Identity canisters, but third-party canisters can also be made by the community and contributed for others to integrate into their own projects. In today's episode, we'll be walking through how to integrate the Internet Identity canister into our project, since that is a very common canister that is integrated into a lot of dApps, since it provides a great way for users to log into the dApp and manage their identity through the ICP Internet Identity service. So today we'll be using DFX, which has a command called DFX which is short for dependencies. This command is specifically developed in order to pull third-party canisters in order to help developers test the accuracy of the integration or perform tests without having to pay cycles or use production environments. It also drastically simplifies the local deployment of canisters, since you don't need to obtain the WASM or candid files for yourself. DFX pulls those from the canister URLs for you. So to get started, we are going to open up a new terminal window. We are going to navigate into whatever working directory we would like to be in. For me, that is my developer journey subdirectory. And then I am going to make sure that DFX is started by using the DFX start clean background command. And for me, DFX is already running. Then I'm going to create a new project called DFX new, and I'm going to call it Dependencies. And so we'll wait for DFX to create the default project using the default template, which is just a hello world template, but we'll edit the code of the default template. So once that is created, we can navigate into that project subdirectory with cd dependencies or change directory dependencies. And to utilize DFX deps, first we need to configure one of our canisters to be dependent on a third-party canister. So to do that, we are going to need to edit our dfx.json file. So to do that, I am going to open up Visual Studio Code, and then I'm going to open the folder for this project. So I'm going to go into my developer journey and then dependencies. I'm just going to open the projects folder, and then I'm going to find this dfx.json file. I'm just going to close the Explorer and then make everything a little bit bigger. And so here we see that we have our default backend and default front end canisters. And we want to take our backend canister, and we are going to edit the configuration for it. So underneath type, we are going to add a new line. And so we're going to need to add a comma at the end of the type line. And so then in this new line, we're going to define dependencies. And then we're going to use a square bracket and press enter. And then we are going to type internet_identity. And then we will close that bracket and close the curly bracket. And for this project, we are going to remove the front end canisters definition from dfx.json. We could also remove the files, but it's not entirely necessary. It won't be built if it's not defined in the dfx.json file. And then we also want to define the Internet Identity canister. So we're going to make another entry where the front end canister was, and we're going to call it Internet Identity. Then we're going to use a curly bracket, and we're going to give it a type. And I made a typo up here and put the colon inside the quotation marks. We want to make it outside the quotation marks, and we're going to have it be of type pull, indicating that we are going to pull this canister using DFX deps. And then we are going to provide the static canister ID of the internet identity canister that we are going to pull. So then we are going to copy and paste this ID over into our dfx.json file. And then we're going to leave everything else in this file default. And I'm going to save this file by hitting Command S. And now in our command line, we are going to use the command dfx deps pull. And this is going to search for dependencies in our dfx.json file. So it found one. It found that our canister with this ID, our dependencies backend canister, has one dependency, and that dependency is this canister ID, which is the internet identity static canister ID. And then it is going to pull that canister. So when it pulls that canister, it's going to fetch the WASM file for it. And then once it fetches the WASM file, it's going to verify it against the hash of the deployed canister on the mainnet. And then it's going to extract information from the WASM file, including the DFX metadata and the candid information. And so all of this is going to be saved in the deps folder. So if we do an ls, we can see that our project now has this deps subdirectory. And if we do ls deps/pulled.json, we'll see, or actually if we do cat, we want to look inside this file, not just list its existence. So if we do a cat on deps/pulled.json, we can see the canister's ID, the name that we've given it in our dfx.json file, and then the WASM hash. So now to use this canister, we still have to run some steps in order to make it available in our local environment. So first of those steps is we need to use the dfx deps init command. And so this is going to provide the init arguments for the canister that it requires in order to be initialized. Some of these canisters do not require any init arguments, but if they do, they will let us know by running this command. And so the internet identity canister does in fact require an init argument. And so this output tells us what command we can run to set that init argument. So we need to run dfx deps init and then the name/principal. So this doesn't give us a whole lot of information in it initially, since what does name/principal indicate? So if we run dfx deps init and then the principal ID. So name/principal here is referring to the name/principal ID of the canister. So this command is letting us know that the canister that we've pulled needs some init arguments configured, but it just tells us how to configure those init arguments. It doesn't tell us which init arguments we actually need to configure. So to get that information, we can run dfx deps init and then the principal ID of the canister. And so then it gives us a little bit more information saying that the internet identity canister requires an init argument. Use null for sensible defaults. So we can go ahead and do that by using dfx deps init, the canister's ID, and then argument null. So now that we've set the canister's init arguments, we can use dfx deps deploy to deploy just that internet identity canister. So it will create it and install it using the WASM file that it pulled and the other data that it was able to extract from that WASM file. And then we can use dfx deploy to deploy the other canister in our dfx.json file. And you'll notice that we get this failed to deploy canisters, and it lets us know that it cannot find internet identity, which is a dependency of the dependencies backend canister. Oh, and it can't find it because I named it identity. So if we go into our dfx.json file, yep, over here I called it identity, which isn't going to work. it is defined as internet identity. So if we go ahead and fix that properly, I'm just going to close out of VI here. So now if we go ahead and we will have to redeploy our DFX deps, we'll have to edit our pulled.json file. So if we go into Explorer and deps and pulled.json, yep, it pulled it and called it identity. So if we fix it to be internet identity and then go ahead and redeploy it, it will reinstall it with the correct name, and then we can use DFX deploy. And now it will be deployed properly. And so now if we open that candid URL in the browser, we can see we have the full internet identity canister here that we were able to install using DFX deps. So like I mentioned, this is a great workflow for other third-party canisters that provide a service at a static canister ID. The important note there is that it needs to be served at a static canister ID that won't change in order to prevent workflows from breaking in the future. If you are interested in learning how to create a third-party canister that can be pulled, please check out our documentation. We do have a guide on how to configure a canister to be pullable. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the DFINITY YouTube channel in order to be updated when the next episode of the ICP Developer Journey is released. If you have any questions or want to reach out to other developers, please check out the ICP Developer Forum or the DFINITY Discord server. In the next episode, we will do an introduction to the Candid language. We'll see everyone next time. Take care.